What's up, Taiwan? I'm Ethan Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's military is on alert as Chinese exercises encircle the country just days into Lai Ching-te's presidency. Although drills like these have become more common in recent years, some analysts worry these could be much more serious. John Van Trist reports.
请你立即调整航向，如执意进入我24海里临界区，我方将采取驱离行动。
Taiwan's Coast Guard sends a warning to a Chinese ship taking part in what Beijing says are exercises meant to punish Taiwan. China claims Taiwan, and for the third time since 2022, has surrounded it with warships. This time, it's unhappy about the recent inauguration of President Lai Ching-te, who it sees as an advocate for Taiwan's independence. President Lai, in just his first week in office, has struck a defiant tone.
我会和国军弟兄姐妹站在第一线，共同守护国家安全。此时此刻，国际社会正高度关注民主台湾，而面对外在的挑战与威胁，我们会持续捍卫自由民主的价值，守护区域的和平稳定。
Taiwan's military has set up a response center and sent fighter jets to enhance naval defense. It's also condemned China's moves.
它就是要达到它所谓的地区上认为他们有主控权，那这是非常不明智的行为。我们绝对不是一个麻烦制造者，但是大家可以看得出来，今天的麻烦制造者就是中共。
Like previous drills, these Chinese moves have had a limited impact on civilian life. Chinese ships have stayed over 24 nautical miles from the coast, outside Taiwan's contiguous waters. But some military analysts worry these drills may not be like the maneuvers Taiwan's grown used to.
蛮类似全面大规模入侵的可能的假想太一样的一种演习，所以它包括可能会需要夺取制空权、制海权、制电磁权，甚至制太空权。
And it isn't just Taiwanese officials on edge. Japan's chief cabinet secretary says Tokyo and allies like the U.S. will remind Beijing of the importance of stability in the Taiwan Strait. And the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command says it's important to take the Chinese president's order to be ready for an invasion of Taiwan by 2027 seriously. But it says a war is not imminent and is avoidable. Still, China's ongoing exercises suggest tensions in the Taiwan Strait are not going to ease anytime soon. Kama Xu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thousands of protesters have taken to Taiwan streets, rallying against a slew of controversial bills going through the legislature. Sally Ensign reports from Taipei.
Well, crowds are growing here with tens of thousands of protesters gathering outside Taiwan's legislature, and they've been gathering, gradually arriving all throughout the day. This is the third peaceful protest this week in response to what's been happening inside the legislature, where lawmakers have been discussing a series of controversial bills to expand the assembly's powers. Now, Taiwan's two main opposition parties which control the legislature say that they want to pass the bills to increase accountability and reinforce democratic checks and balances. But we spoke to some protesters here earlier who believe that the bills are being pushed through without due process and could undermine Taiwan's democracy.
这个议案在完全没有进行实质讨论，然后就这样推出去，然后现在要2读，然后就要3读，我觉得这样对台湾未来的民主法治是非常的不好的。
国民党跟民众党他如何侵犯台湾，然后如何要把立法院变成香港的立法局，那希望台湾人要警觉这件事情。
Threats to Taiwan's freedom and sovereignty are in the spotlight right now as China conducts a series of large-scale military exercises around Taiwan. And some people here are worried that conflict in the legislature, China may use this to make Taiwan vulnerable to influence.
在这个法案在被通过之前，我们应该要去审慎的考虑说，中国现在对我们的敌意的这么强， 对，那他是不是有可能去利用这件事情？
Parallel protests are happening in cities around the country, and lawmakers are expected to stay at the legislature debating late into the night. And protesters here too say that they'll be here hoping to keep them in check.
That was Sally Jensen reporting from outside the legislature. Meanwhile, legislative reform protests in Taiwan have spread beyond the capital to other cities across the country. About 500 people gathered outside the Taichung train station in central Taiwan. They're protesting what they say is an opaque legislative process and say opposition parties are pushing the bills through without proper debate. And in Tainan, several protesters gathered outside the National Museum of Taiwan Literature in solidarity with protests in Taipei. The opposition Kuomintang is one of the parties proposing the reforms. The party has secured a spot for a counter-protest next to the legislative building in Taipei. This week has given President Lai Ching-te a taste of the challenges he will face as leader of Taiwan, from polarized domestic politics to rising aggression from Beijing. Rick Glower reports on the man with his back against the wall.
A display of its disapproval. China sends military ships to surround Taiwan just days after the island nation inaugurated a new leader. Beijing claims sovereignty over the self-ruled country and sees its new president as a dangerous separatist for espousing Taiwanese democracy. These drills, Beijing says, a punishment for Lai's inauguration speech.
我们也要向世界宣告，民主自由是台湾不可退让的坚持。 和平是唯一的选项，繁荣是长治久安的目标。
Despite winning the presidency for his Democratic Progressive Party, or the DPP, Lai now faces a hostile legislature in the hands of more China-leaning opposition parties. They took their seats weeks before Lai's inauguration and have been rushing through controversial reforms that would allow Parliament to investigate government officials and citizens, which leaders of main opposition party, the Kuomintang or KMT, say will bring greater accountability.
What we want to achieve is to, as I said, to consolidate and refine our democratic system. So we wanted to say a better check and balance, a more balanced executive versus legislative power.
Disputes in the chamber have descended into violence. Lai's ruling DPP accuses the opposition of stifling debate and not following parliamentary procedures, and say the reforms could make Taiwan more vulnerable to Chinese aggression.
All these pro-China legislators who visit China pretty often, they could initiate this kind of investigation and putting some sort of pressure on people who dislike China. So that's why I think the democracy might break with this bill.
Public opinion is also split. There have been large street protests supporting both sides of the legislature. And the Chinese military drills, continuing for a second day, have put this sensitive region on edge.
Lai has a very difficult task, but the first year I'd expect him to be very severely tested. And I guess what he needs to do is to show both people in Taiwan and also the world that he's able to handle stress, that he's not going to crack under pressure.
Lai is sticking to his guns and refusing to flinch in the face of Chinese aggression. He's promised to push ahead with bolstering national defense, putting Taiwan's resolve on display. But with his leadership facing challenges both at home and abroad, less than a week into the job, this new president is already having to prove his mettle. Chris Ma and Rick Lowett for TaiwanPlus.
At least 14 people are dead after a fire broke out in Vietnam's capital, Hanoi. The blaze engulfed the 5-story building in a densely populated residential area. At least 3 others were injured. Authorities say they've sealed off the area and are investigating what caused the fire. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim is defending his ties with Hamas after meeting with the group's leaders.
I say, please respect the decision of your neighboring countries and try to secure peace, return the hostages in exchange for the prisoners in life, and accept the two-state solution. Is that an offense Did I promote terrorism? No.
Ibrahim's comments follow criticism of his meeting with Hamas leaders in Qatar last week. He says his decades-long ties with the Palestinian Islamist group gives him leverage in securing peace in the Middle East. Malaysia is a predominantly Muslim country and does not have diplomatic ties with Israel. From destructive storms to intense heat, extreme weather is hitting countries across the world and set to stay for at least the next few weeks. John Van Trist reports.
Brazil's far south, underwater. In 12 hours, the city of Porto Alegre got as much rain as it typically does in a month. And that's after a month of even more downpours that have killed at least 163 people. Fresh rainstorms have undone days of cleanup work and forced hundreds of thousands to evacuate. Elsewhere in the Americas, scorched fields harden under an unrelenting sun. Mexico is baking under the third heat wave of the year. Temperatures in parts of the country have broken 45 degrees Celsius, and sources of water are drying up everywhere. In the city of León, some Roman Catholics have turned to the only option left: prayer.
Vamos a pedir porque el Señor envíe a nuestro estado y a todos los seres humanos este don del agua. Hay una relación profunda. Comemos de los campos. El ambiente, la temperatura, todo está en torno a nuestra vida y el agua.
And the Eastern Hemisphere hasn't been spared extreme heat either. This family in Lahore, Pakistan is struggling with temperatures of close to 50 degrees Celsius and frequent power cuts that turn off their fans. The family sleeps on the roof to keep cool, but during the day, expensive ice from the market is the only way to handle the dangerous temperatures. They're happy just to have access to water.
पानी का सिस्टम ये है कि पानी यहाँ पे पीने वाला नहीं है, बोरिंग वाला पानी है, वो पीने वाला नहीं है। बाहर इलाका शुक्र है, एक मस्जिद में है, मदरसे में है और एक दो जगह पे और है, वहाँ से पानी ले आते हैं भर के, वो पीने वाला पानी अपना। तो अभी ये देखें ना कि बैठे सही चल रहा था निज़ाम, अभी एकदम से लाइट चली गई है। अभी लाइट आएगी तकरीबन 1 घंटे बाद, 2 घंटे बाद, 3 घंटे बाद।
Changes in the climate are making intense weather events like these more common in more places, straining whole countries and economies, and putting lives around the world at risk. Andy Xue and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Hundreds of bikers are accompanying a statue of the sea goddess Mazu on her journey around central Taiwan. This strenuous procession is the only one of its kind in the country. Wesley Lewis has the story.
The sea goddess Mazu is back in the saddle. The ornate statue is embarking on Taiwan's only cycling temple procession. This year, nearly 500 bikers are accompanying Mazu on wheels on a tour around central Taiwan. Some participants take part every year just to get some exercise. Other participants take the opportunity to bond with family. Cyclists start in Miaoli city, pass through Taichung and Zhanghua on their way to Yunlin. Then they make their way back to Miaoli the next day. The entire journey is around 345 kilometers. This event has been held for over 60 years, and Miaoli's mayor hopes the city can keep the tradition coasting along. Event organizers have prepared medals and certificates to incentivize cyclists to put the pedal to the metal and serve as lasting souvenirs for the unique religious sporting event. Patrick Chen and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website and follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we bring you the latest update on the progress of the Olympic torch as it passes through France's renowned Bordeaux winemaking region. I'm Ethan Liu. Take care, and I'll see you next time.